Good evening and welcome. This is the January 10th, 2024 public hearing of the Land Use Commission. The City Code directs this body to hear applications for map and text amendments, special uses including planned developments, zoning relief, and appeals from decisions of the zoning administrator, as well as to make recommendations regarding the city's long-term planning goals and objectives. Depending on the type of matter, this commission will either make a final determination or send its recommendation to City Council. Ms. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aravallo, Commissioner Halleck,
Here.
Commissioner Hugo, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Linwall,
Here.
Commissioner Murinchev,
Here.
Commissioner Puchtel,
Here.
Commissioner Westerberg,
Here.
Chair Rogers.
Here, so with 6 members present, we do have a quorum. Also present from city staff tonight are Neighborhood and Land Use Planner Megan Jones, Assistant City Attorney Brian George, and Zoning Administrator Melissa Klotz. This is a formal hearing and there are rules that govern our proceedings. Most importantly, only one person speaks at a time, so all testimony may be accurately recorded. Anyone who wishes to address the commission regarding any matter on tonight's agenda will have the opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. Our procedure is to hear from staff on the documents on file and then receive testimony and other evidence from the applicant or appellant. After that, persons wishing to make a statement regarding the matter will have a chance to do so. Any person with a legal interest in property located within the defined notification requirements of the subject property may present evidence, reasonably question witnesses, or seek a continuance of the hearing. When all supporting and opposing testimony and statements have been heard, the applicant or appellant will be given the opportunity for rebuttal or a closing statement. Then the commission will close the record and begin deliberations to consider the standards. The commission will make formal findings of fact based on the testimony and evidence presented, guided by the standards, the commissioner's knowledge of our community, and the recommendations of staff. All testimony is taken under oath. Although we do not apply the strict rules of evidence, please limit your testimony to the proposal as it relates to the standards contained in the zoning ordinance and the corresponding staff memorandum. When testifying, please make sure you state your name and address for the record and sign in on the provided comment sheet. Our meetings are audio and video recorded. Please make sure that you are at a microphone when asking questions or making statements so that you can be properly recorded. All proceedings are subject to broadcast at a later date. Any matter not concluded at tonight's hearing will be continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting. We do have 3 items on the agenda, technically 4 items on the agenda. The first one, which is just an open vote that will be closing out this evening. I kind of did a little thing before we went on the air. I do not have the applicant for 1630 Orrington in the room yet. The applicant for 2649 Crawford Avenue is in the room. And the last is a text amendment for cannabis dispensary hours, which is city initiated. So the city is the applicant in that particular case. At this point, I will ask if we'll go on to the approval of the meeting minutes from our December 13th, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I move approval of the December 13th, 2023 minutes.
It's been moved by Commissioner Lindwall. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Westerberg. Are there any edits, corrections that need to be made? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
And I think that
Abstain.
As I say, I think there's 4 of us who could vote. So there's with a 4-0, it does the motion does carry and the minutes are approved. We will now move on to a matter of old business. We had a case in November, I think. And it is currently has a 4-3 vote. Because of the fact that it's a determination by this body, we must have 5 concurring votes of the majority of 9, either in favor or opposed for the motion to carry. The 2 commissioners who were not here for that meeting are here tonight, that being Commissioner Murinchev and Commissioner Puchtel. So I'll ask each of you individually. Commissioner Murinchev, have you had an opportunity to look through the case and review the minutes and or videotape?
Yes, I did.
And are you prepared at this time to cast a vote?
Yes.
And how do you vote?
No.
No. Commissioner Puchtel, have you had an opportunity to review the case and the minutes and or video?
I have.
And are you prepared at this time to cast a vote?
I am.
And how do you vote?
Yes.
So with a 5-4 vote, the motion does carry and it is approved. So staff, will you please reach out to the applicant for that particular case and let them know that it's been approved. Moving on to our new business, I'll ask if there's a motion for us to take 2649 Crawford Avenue first, since the applicant for 1630 Orrington is not in the room.
I'll move we address the issue for 2649 Crawford Avenue first.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Westerberg, seconded by Lindwall. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So with that, we will rearrange the agenda so that the matter 22 ZMJV 0070, 2649 Crawford Avenue will go first. And I will ask that that please be read into the record.
Michelle Walker, property owner, appeals the determination of minor variation 23 ZMNV 0057 at 2649 Crawford Avenue. The applicant originally requested and was subsequently denied zoning relief to construct a 20-foot by 20-foot detached garage within the front yard, where detached garages are only allowed in rear yards, section 6463, in the R2 single-family residential district. The Land Use Commission is the determining body for this case in accordance with section 6388 of the Evanston Zoning Code.
At this point, anybody who may be speaking to us on this matter, I'm just going to swear you in. If you would raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? Thank you. And if you'd please come up to the lectern and state your name and address for the record.
Michelle Walker, 2649 Crawford.
Dan Nelson, 2649 Crawford.
All right. If you'd please tell us about your project.
Sure. We own the lot at 2649 Crawford, and we, as she said, we're trying to build a garage. We have probably one of the most unusual lots around. It's a bunch of triangles, and we also have a very unusual construction of a house in that it is on a true slab. There is no crawl space. There is no basement. There is no attic. There is nothing. And so based on the way our land is set up, the way the house sits on the land, we have made this proposal of where to place the garage, which in our minds, to us, it's sort of we see it as a side yard. We see it as tucking the garage off to the side of the property. And which to us felt like the best use of space, the best use of the land, the best use of space. We understand all of the limitations and all of the ways in which it doesn't meet. But in terms of giving all of the constraints, there is no access to the backyard. There is no way to do a detached in the back. The other factor, which we use to place it off to the side, because I think the real issue at hand here is, in this case, most requests would be to attach it to the side of the house. That side of the house has everything that kind of runs the house. It has all of the electrical. The electrical main runs right, sort of bisects the house. The phone lines, some of the water lines, the air conditioner, the HVAC, the furnace is on the other side of the wall. That whole side of the house is full of everything that really runs the house. And because of the unique construction of the house, moving any of that is a real challenge, because all of that it's not just like, it's all poured into concrete. all of the mechanicals and the way the house is built on a slab, everything is just poured into the cement. So that's kind of where we are, and that's how we got here.
So, go ahead.
No, and that's just how we got to our thinking, here's where it makes sense to us to place it.
Did you consider moving it back, not necessarily attaching it to the house, but trying to tuck it in a little closer to the house or anything like that, so it's not kind of out on its own?
So we were always trying to fight this balance between the setback issues and the location and the size. And so we felt like this location is, here's what I would say, we're not married to it, but we are trying to come up with a solution that works for the land and the crazy sort of lot that we're given.
Also, there's a telephone pole there, and the electrical line runs underneath as required by the electrical inspector.
I think there's another drawing that we submitted later that we had an architect do that maps out. This maps a little better exactly what all is going on the side of the house. We also have, as you see towards the street, so we have an existing driveway, which we were also trying to make use of. If any plan that sort of comes closer to the house changes the curb cut, and also there's existing sewer and manhole, city sewer, rainwater and manhole covers in the yard and in the street, which would also come into play as things start to change without being able to use the existing driveway.
I have a question. Maybe I'm just confused, but in our packet, there's like 16 different site plans.
Yeah.
Which one are you proposing? Because even the two that you showed are different, I think.
So we started this journey as just homeowners, and many of our original submissions were drawings that we were doing ourselves. And we realized as time went on that they were inadequate and they weren't really communicating and as precise as everything needed to be. So as we were in preparation for this meeting, we hired an architect, and we paid him to do these formal existing site plans, also formally place it and do the driveway recommendations and the turning radius and all the things that were lacking in some of our homeowner done things. So this version is this final version that we submitted in preparation from the architect in preparation for tonight is our submission.
And I think anything else was just historical records of what was presented before.
Yeah, and us trying to kind of,
Just another clarification, maybe for staff, is that the location of the garage is one issue. Is the width of the driveway and the curb cut the other issue?
The width of the driveway on private property is only a concern if you think there isn't enough maneuvering space. The width of the driveway on the public right-of-way is a bit of a concern. It is slightly larger than what Public Works allows, so it would need to shrink by a tad, but I believe we're talking inches.
and I think in previous versions, it was
If
an issue.
you could just make sure you're
Sorry,
talking to the mic, yep, just so that it's picking up
Yeah,
for the
in
record.
previous issues, in previous versions, it was an issue. We had it, I think, at 18 feet, and they felt like 19 feet. But then, once we had this architect plan done, I think he did everything sort of, he widened it so that all those things would be accommodated.
And I have a question. Do you insist on getting into the garage this way rather than directly from the street? What's the reason that you have these radii, and go sideways to the garage?
If the garage was turned to face the street?
Yes.
Then it would involve more curb cut work. And this was a plan that used our existing driveway as is.
My point is that you can still use your existing driveway, just make something like widening it at the moment, entering the garage, but still facing with the garage doors the street, and a kind of a, in my opinion, rotated, let's say, parallel to the building, so that not everything is a kind of a rotated and not in harmony inside your yard. That's why I'm asking this question, whether there is a real big reason to access the garage sideways, or you're open to
Let me
Maybe a
add to
different
that question,
solution.
because I think we're all thinking the same thing. If you rotated it so it's simpler to get in and out of the, from the street into the garage, you won't have all these turns. Can't you basically position that garage within 5 feet of the eastern, call it, boundary of your house? Because then, you only need 3 feet for ComEd, and your condenser is out there, so maybe 5 feet. So couldn't you rotate it and push it back, so you keep that 5 feet? The garage would be closer to your house, the entry and exit for cars would be a lot simpler. I mean, I don't know.
So that it was more forward. I didn't,
I think they're suggesting that it's rotated counterclockwise and then pushed up maybe 5 feet away from the northeast flat edge of the house.
yeah. That's exactly right. Right. But still detached,
Right.
Still detached.
still detached,
Right,
but
'cause
just
you
sort
have
of.
Is there, it's a question for staff. What's the minimum distance between a detached garage? Isn't it 10 feet?
10 feet is required. As part of an appeal, you do have the authority to grant additional
Right, I
variance.
just was asking for the
10 feet is the
clarification. 10
regulation.
feet is what typically is.
Correct. If it's closer than 10 feet, then fireproofing would be needed in the garage, which is essentially 2 layers of drywall instead of 1.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to clarify as we were talking about it, that that's what,
I think we understand that.
Yeah.
But.
I think in trying to meet like because of the way that triangle and the ComEd poll, and so number one, yes, we're open to other versions. But number two, this was a plan which sort of satisfied the most setback requirements. And that's kind of how we got here. But if some of those were forgiven also, and there was a plan where it kind of turned.
I mean, I'll just speak for myself here and not necessarily for the commission, but I would much rather see the house or the garage turned and tucked in so that it feels like it's not standing out in the middle of the side yard, which is technically the front yard, all on its own, but feels a little more in place with the lines of the house and the street.
Right. That's super important to us too. It's a very unique house.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue the fact that this is a unique property. It's a difficult one. I mean, you obviously have no alley access off of anything.
Right.
So that's not even an option. But I think what we're trying to look at is how do we make it feel the least intrusive on the neighborhood. And I think again, not speaking for everybody because I haven't heard from everybody, but from what I'm hearing from people, I think if we were to turn the garage and kind of make it in line with so it's more parallel to the house and the street. I mean, they're not exactly parallel to each other, but more that way.
Yeah, I think we ended up here, as Michelle said, it was all because we were butting up against setback issues and we were
Right.
just trying to find it.
And given where the electrical main is, so we have an underground electrical main.
Right.
Which we know we can't build on top of. So it was pushing it really far forward, which we didn't know if that was, it was
Could you outline the main where this, I was assuming the main comes
The main is in there. It's
perpendicular
really
to the.
faint. I'm going to ask you can you hand her the handheld just so? And maybe use the pointer. Do you have because she's not going to be able to reach that. It doesn't work. And if it doesn't, that's fine. Okay. So sort of upper center of the drawing, underneath, you can see where the language is to the left of the garage.
Yeah, if you come down, it's like the roof overhang, the electrical meter, the electrical boxes,
Go up further north.
and then,
Further, there. Oh,
yeah.
Right,
And kind
just
of that
below.
dotted line.
Right
I
there.
think is where the architect marked.
Yep.
That's the, where it trenches underground
Okay.
to the pole. And then the pole is also in our yard, the utility pole. ComEd's utility pole is also in our yard at that corner.
Where is the pole?
where it meets where this dotted line kind of bisects the fence area, sort of.
Let me get where I am.
Yeah.
So sort of right in.
Yeah,
this
yeah.
area.
Oh, there, okay.
Right, right.
Closer to the front.
And then this is the actual line into the house, kind of runs along there.
But yes, I think it's,
But I mean, in looking kind of, I don't have exact measurements here, but I was looking at the plat. That side of the house is roughly 28 plus change in feet. And that looks like it comes in about halfway, so that's probably about 14 feet back from the front of the house.
Yes.
And with a 20-foot garage, that puts you 6 feet projecting forward, which if I'm, again, kind of guessing at the measurements here, but it's kind of where that solid line is here would be the front of the garage, roughly.
Rotated.
Yeah, rotated. If it's rotated, that's where the front of the garage would have to sit to clear the
Yeah.
electrical line.
And some dimension less than 10 feet from the house.
Right.
I'm not sure that it would necessarily have to be less than 10 feet.
I think, well,
Depends. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess the question I would have is, now that you have an architect that, the one plan, did he try to do a plan that moved the garage? Or was he just drawing what you had, been thinking of? Or have you talked to the architect about doing something? Alternate.
We talked about versions that played with the setbacks, but it was still always in the side, what we think of as the side yard, just because there's all that empty space over there. So no, I don't have that on paper, but
But I think also we thought that's what we were trying to solve the most. Because that was what we were coming across, the biggest problem in the beginning was the setback issues. That's what we were trying to solve.
and coming to us now, we can look at it fresh. So the zoning administrator has to work with what you've given.
Yeah.
And then when an appeal is filed, we can look at it fresh and say, hey, we'd rather look at it this way. So we aren't necessarily worrying about the same things. We're trying to solve a different problem
I appreciate that.
here.
How would it, I mean, I know we're all just still talking, but how would it work in terms of going forward? Submitting a new version?
So basically, based on what we come up with here as to what we're willing to permit in
Yeah.
that area, you would have to come up with a drawing that works within that confine. But we would grant whatever exemptions are necessary in terms of setbacks, because obviously anything you do is going to be encroaching in the front yard. There's no way around that because the front yard starts at the front of your house, and there's no way you can fit something in.
And those side corners, where our fence and we share with the neighbor.
Right.
And those are the corners where it gets tight as well.
Right.
Yeah.
One question I have is, as you drive down this block, you see attached garages and you see carports. That's basically what you have. So I can understand the city's concern with wanting to respect that look. Have you considered a carport? I realize a garage would be nice, but can a carport give you some of what you need? Because that really helps to relieve some of the burdens of trying to hit the setbacks and trying to deal with your electrical and everything else.
A carport still has to come way forward because we still can't be on top of the electric line. So we're still coming way forward. We also felt like, sure, a carport could, but because this house is so unique, because there is no basement, there is no attic, there is nowhere to put anything, the appeal of a garage for lawnmowers and bikes and snow blowers and the cars and security, being able to lock something up, just sort of outweighed for us the appeal of a carport.
And when did you buy the house?
We bought it a year ago in February.
Okay.
And we've been working on it. It was abandoned. It was a vacant abandoned house. It had been sort of foreclosed on, and then it was vacant for many years. And it had a whole bunch of violations against it, which we've cleared, and we've done work on it. We've restored it. It's like a beautiful mid-century modern version of sort of that neighborhood. And so we've been able to bring it back to life, and this is kind of like the last piece of the puzzle.
So I question for staff then, this would end up being the only detached garage if we were to permit it on that block,
Our
as I
neighbor
understand
has
it.
Sorry, she can.
Yeah, I believe the house to the
East.
has a detached garage that is not far from where the proposed garage is, but just because of the angle of the lot, it's not really in their front yard, it's in their side yard.
Yeah, I have to say, I went to the site, and that is very unusual. And when you don't know the site plan, you think, well, your garage is right next to their garage. But I think we're also talking about approving a precedent here, and I don't know if that's existing non-compliant and the other lots. So that really is not so much of an issue for me. I did have a question maybe for staff. There was a garage, a scheme for a attached or detached garage previously approved? I thought I read that in the materials. And
Unknown during the decision of the minor variation, but then found as the appeal progressed, and I dug into past history, I did find that the house originally had I believe, one-car attached garage, and that was allowed to legally be converted to habitable space with an agreement that a new garage would be built at a future date. And I do not know what happened, but that future garage just never occurred.
We can only guess. We had to redo this electrical, the main trench, and all the outside meters and the pole and everything. And it was a giant project. We can only assume that the old homeowners sort of ran up against the same obstacles in terms of their hopes for building a garage, because the electrical was the first obstacle that we kind of had to redo and sort of overcome in terms of the mechanicals of the house.
Are there any other questions? Not hearing any. Is there anything you'd like to say in summation before we close the record and begin deliberation?
No, have we said? Thank you. We're very appreciative for this evening, for an audience with you and letting us be heard.
One quick question. I'm assuming the lawnmower and all of that is stored in the shed and the bicycles?
Right
that you
now?
have- That right now that you have?
Yes.
Okay.
The shed is very sad. It needs to come down. It has been there. There is a family living under it of, critters and rotted out. It needs to come down. So there needs to be a solution of some kind. But yes, the shed would go, and that would also sort of.
I have another question, actually, made me think of that. Garages, I think, are typically 22 feet wide, is that right? I think my garage is 22 feet wide, I think.
It can be anywhere, yeah.
The issue is, will a 20-foot by 20-foot garage handle all your, I'm suggesting you might want to make it bigger, actually, to handle your lawnmower, and we understand that those are real issues. Just check on that.
Yeah, I mean, 20 by 20 is the smallest two-car possible, which was as high as we could set our hopes, given the constraints of everything and the setbacks. We didn't dare go any larger.
Well, let me just speak for me personally. I think that if you did what we're suggesting and rotated it and made it in line with the main facade of the house, and then kept a space for the condenser and electrical stuff, you might want to consider somehow making it a little bit bigger so that it would accommodate your other stuff, because 20 by 20 will not.
Understood.
Where are we on like building lot coverage and impervious surface and everything else? I mean, it's an odd lot, so I can't do it right off the top of my head.
There is a little wiggle room. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I was going to comment that if the commission is entertaining approving a detached garage, there either needs to be a lot of clarifications on minimum distances of things, or, and potentially if the applicant prefers it, a continuance to allow them to come back with a site plan that you can see. Just one or the other so that it is clear. And if the continuance is preferred, that would also give them the opportunity to make the garage a little bit larger if they would like.
Now, how does that sound to you? If we were to grant like a 2-week continuance, so you've heard what we've had to say and what our concerns are.
Yeah.
And it gives you the opportunity then to meet with your architect, figure out, maybe you can do a 20 by 24 or a 20 by 22 or a 22, but whatever size garage fits in that space. I think that the direction that we would give based off of what I'm hearing is that we would like to see it more in line with and parallel with the house, with at least 5 feet distance in between the detached garage and the house.
Right.
And there is ample room to make the garage larger from a building lot coverage and impervious
Okay.
standpoint.
So you have some wiggle room there before you kick into additional
Right.
things that need to be taken care of. So that would be, if you're agreeable to that, I would ask if there is a motion to continue. And do you think 2 weeks would be enough time for you to meet with your architect and have him sketch something out for us?
And I'm happy to sit down with you as well and make sure that you're meeting what the commissioners have in mind.
Yes, I mean, we would love that. We've been like shooting in the dark and, along the way. And
Right.
any direction is very welcome. And we could definitely turn it around in 2 weeks and have a new submission. And then we would all have the facts. And then if
Right.
you looked at it and it was just a matter of like, we love it, but 1 foot or 2 foot or some sort of orientation that.
Right.
But if we're all speaking the same language, like
Yep.
detached, 5 feet, like that's something we can run with.
Yeah,
And-
or if it needs to be 10 you said that
Well,
between
10
the,
is what is, but they can fireproof it and keep it
right.
within that
So it
distance.
kind of depends, so I think, and that's better, Melissa, than to deny the appeal and have them start over? I mean, we don't want you to take any longer than necessary.
That
There's
would
no
take a
reason
lot
to
longer.
start it over with.
Yeah,
it.
that
Okay.
would take a lot longer.
We don't want to do that.
So at this point, then, I will ask if there is a motion to continue this matter until our meeting on January 24th.
Well, can I offer another pathway? I'm not sure we necessarily need to see this again. I think we could determine now what the criteria is and give that to them to work with. And as long as they come up with a solution with their architect within those bounds, like, we're good.
I'd really like to see a plan that addresses what you'd like to do with the help of the architect. I think that's very clear then, and everyone knows what they're voting on.
Are you going to make a motion?
All right, I'll make the motion that we continue this matter until our meeting on January 24th.
Is there a second?
Second,
It's-
and actually, I've got a comment too. On the plan, I'd like to make sure that you're clearly showing where the electrical, underground
It-
is.
it's there,
and
it's hard to
there.
see.
I know.
Yeah, it's
I
hard
think
to
it would
see
be
on the
easier if it's,
What?
I don't think we've closed the record yet.
oh,
My only other comment was just so you guys know, it's probably in there, but our design for it is very much in line with the house. It's a flat roof, it's a very, okay.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded.
Yes,
Is
seconded.
there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of continuing this matter until our meeting on January 24th, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
All right. So with 5 votes in favor, the motion passes, and the matter will be continued until our meeting on the 24th. Again, you can work with Ms. Klotz on any of the specifics. You can also watch this meeting again on YouTube if you have questions about anything we said, or if you're just bored, looking for something to do.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I've seen someone sneak in at the back, and I'm guessing that is my applicant for 1630 Orrington Avenue. Is that correct? Okay. If you'd come up, I'm going to have to swear you in since you were not here at the beginning. And if you would, Ms. Klotz, is this your case as well? if you'd like to read it into the record, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
Luz Garcia, business operator, requests a special use for a resale establishment in JBS Thrift in the D3 Downtown Core Development District, Section 61143. The Land Use Commission makes a recommendation to the City Council, the determining body for this case, in accordance with Section 6358 of the Evanston Zoning Code.
Thank you. At this point, if you'd raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings?
Yes. ¿Cuál esta? Esta?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And if you would state your name and address for the record?
Yes. Okay. My name is Luz Garcia.
All right, and would you tell us about your project, please?
Okay. My English is not good. I'm bring to my son maybe to
Okay.
introduction. Okay. Thank you so much for help me. I want to open the storage. It's a small business. It's 3 storage. It's for help to my family to another persons. Maybe.
So what is the purpose of the business?
This is el propósito is this working for myself and I help another people's.
Okay, so it's a resale shop
Yeah.
where you,
I want to for my family and I have another persons.
okay,
This is a small business.
all right. And so you will solicit people to bring you secondhand clothes and items to sell?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. And what types of hours are you looking at for your business?
De las 12 to 8 o'clock.
Okay, so noon till 8 p.m. All right, and that will be 7 days a week?
6 days.
6 days a week, okay. How many employees do you think you will have?
Only me.
Only you, all right?
Yeah.
And do you predict that you'll be getting how will you get deliveries? Will people just drop stuff
Yeah.
off for you?
Cuando I'm finished to 8 o'clock, the people bring to deliver in the bag, like 7:30 in the bag, and I pick it up and I bring to the storage and another day open because I know I'm supposed to leave to 8 o'clock.
Okay. Are there questions from other commissioners? All right, I think this is pretty straightforward.
Is there another thrift shop at that address?
It's a couple
And
doors down.
Yes, and as in the second door is the same business.
Same type.
Yeah,
Just 2 doors down?
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? No? All right. I will ask if anybody else is here to speak to this on this matter, but I don't think anybody is, since I think you all are together. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing before we begin deliberation?
Yes. No,
All right. Thank you very much.
thank you so much. That's it?
All right. With that, I'll close the record. General thoughts from the commission? You can have a seat if you'd like.
Okay.
Well, I, walk down that stretch fairly often. I would note that there's also a resale shop on Sherman Avenue, and I haven't seen any issues with any of them. So, and it will fill a vacant storefront.
Okay. Anything else from commissioners? Nope. All right. This is a special use in which we are a recommending body to city council. We must find that 9 standards are met in order to make a recommendation to council. And we'll run through those real quickly now. The first one is that it is one of the listed special uses for the zoning district in which the property lies. This is in the downtown core district, and we do know that a resale shop is, resale establishment is one of the special uses that can be put in this district, and so therefore that standard is met. Number two, it complies with the purposes and policies of the comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance. Obviously, we're looking to not have vacant storefronts in our downtown area specifically, throughout the city overall, but in the downtown area with the number of properties that sort of abut one another, having vacancies does become more noticeable. And the fact that we're looking to have someone who wants to start a small business, I believe that those two things make this in compliance with standard number two. Number three, it does not cause a negative cumulative effect in combination with the existing special uses or as a category of land use. We have heard some testimony that there already is a resale shop in this area, but as resale shops go, I think people tend to frequent them because it's always something different at each one. It's not a direct competition thing where everybody has the exact same thing. So I don't see a problem with having a second one. And again, by filling in a vacant storefront, I think that also helps improve the area. Number four, it does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. Again, going to the fact that we're putting a business into a vacant area or into a vacant property, I feel that this standard is met. Number five, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. There's no reason to believe that it couldn't be. Number six, does not cause undue traffic congestion. The one thing that we did talk a little bit about was having the drop-off would be at the rear entrance. And so that would be my only concern, and I would ask for maybe a condition that we keep an eye on people just dropping stuff off in front of the building, because sometimes people do that as well. So we'll put that in as one of the conditions. Number seven, it preserves significant historical and architectural resources. I don't believe there are any in this particular location. Number eight, it preserves significant natural and environmental resources, again, without any changes to the actual site plan. I don't believe that that will come into play. And number nine, it complies with all other applicable regulations. And obviously, there are regulations outside of the purview of land use that she would need to do, including business licensing, things like that, but I have no reason to believe that the applicant would not do those things. Is everyone in agreement with my finding on standards? If so, I will ask if there is a motion with the conditions that are specifically in place on page 3 of 4 of this in the packet about the hours of operation, employees not parking on street, deliveries at the rear, and the other typical things that we put in with our special use.
Just maybe something I don't understand. Deliveries in the rear. This is a courtyard building, isn't it? So how do you deliver in the rear? Am I wrong?
There's like an alley and
Oh, that
rear
goes.
entry.
That's right.
Yeah,
There
there's
is.
a rear.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a weird little.
Yes.
And typically with resale shops, I mean, they're not necessarily like the Salvation Army where people are dropping off miscellaneous things. Usually, I presume it's something that they're soliciting and paying for. So it's almost like a kind of a consignment sort of situation.
Right. I have gone to the one on, and delivered something to the one on Chicago Avenue, and it was large, and I parked on the street, and I brought it in. It was 2 seconds, and
Right.
came out. So even that, I don't think is such a
No,
big deal.
and
Yeah.
the one on Sherman Avenue, people wait outside before it opens with their bag of clothes that they want to sell. So,
yeah.
and that I haven't seen as
Right.
a particular issue.
And then the only other condition, like I said, it would be just to monitor that people aren't dropping things off overnight and it's not becoming sort of a dumping ground in front of the store. So with that, is there a motion to recommend approval?
I'll make a motion that in the case of a special use for a resale establishment at 1630 Orrington Avenue, 23 ZMJV-0069, that the Land Use Commission make a positive recommendation to the City Council, subject to the conditions listed on page 3 of our memo, which we've just discussed, and adding to those 5 conditions that there be a close monitoring of the front entrance to make sure that materials are not dumped overnight in that location.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
So moved by Commissioner Westerberg, seconded by Commissioner Lindwall. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Halleck? Yes. Commissioner Linwall?
Yes.
Commissioner Mudinchev?
Yes.
Commissioner Pucktall?
Yes.
Commissioner Westerberg?
Yes.
Chair Rogers?
Yes. So with 6 votes in favor and none against, the motion carries, and it will move forward to City Council with a positive recommendation from this body. And you can work with Ms. Klotz, and she'll let you know exactly when you'll appear on the City Council agenda and anything that they may need for you. All right? Good luck with your project. Thank you. That brings us to our 3rd item on the agenda this evening. Ms. Klotz, would you read that into the record, please?
A city-initiated text amendment to the zoning ordinance to amend the permitted hours of operation for cannabis dispensaries, Section 6411.3, in the RP Research Park, D1 Downtown Fringe, D2 Downtown Retail Core, D3 Downtown Core Development, D4 Downtown Transition, C1A Commercial Mixed Use, C1 Commercial, C2 Commercial, B1A Business, B2 Business, B3 Business, O1 Office, ODM Dempster Main Overlay, OCSC Central Street Corridor Overlay, and OH Hospital Overlay Districts, where cannabis dispensaries are eligible special uses. The Land Use Commission makes a recommendation to the City Council for this case in accordance with Section 6346 of the Evanston Zoning Code.
Can I ask a question? Just to clarify, all of those, that long list of zoning areas, is that just the list of all of them where they are a permitted special use?
Correct. There are no changes proposed to what districts dispensaries are allowed in.
Thanks.
Which I think is just about everything except a residential district.
And except for the B1.
Yeah.
And just another clarification, the current text says 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., is that right?
Yes.
Yes, I think that's right.
Correct. So the only change proposed is to change what the zoning ordinance allows the eligible hours to be. So instead of 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., it would, staff is recommending that it opens it up to what the state currently allows, which is 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Now, because dispensaries are only allowed as a special use, that means the current dispensaries that operate in Evanston cannot just then operate from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Since they are already approved with conditions that include hours of operation, they would need to return and have their special use amended to be different hours.
But I can't imagine that we would, 2 things, can't imagine that we would approve 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. and then when someone would come in and ask us specifically for their site, we'd say something different.
We could.
We could, but.
And I think part of that depends, in my opinion at least, where part of that depends on is which one of these districts is it in, what's happening around it, things like that.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point.
So, I mean, obviously somebody that's in the downtown district, I think people are downtown later, there's more activity.
I see. Yeah.
I would be kind of a little loath to, if something's kind of off in an area where everything shuts down, keeping it open till 10 o'clock seems a little weird for an all-cash business, or a mostly cash business now, they do.
Yeah,
But without getting too far ahead of ourselves, is there anything, Ms. Klotz, that you would like to present to us?
That was mostly it. Beyond that, I would just note that the staff memo does list, I believe all of the surrounding area dispensaries, just to see what their typical hours are. The ones that say max, it's where they have like one day that has different hours. I assume it's just what works for them. But you can see, typically speaking, most dispensaries in the area are operating for about a 12-hour window, typically 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Just a question, what is the concern for increasing the hours? There's concern about there being unduly restricted. Can you just explain that a little bit?
I believe it's just in comparison to what other dispensaries in other communities are allowed to do.
So if we looked at the hours from other communities, which seem to be 9 to 9, seems to be kind of the going pattern, that could also be adopted as opposed to using the state hours, correct?
And also, could an applicant, specific applicant, come to us for a special use and we extend those hours? Or no?
It couldn't go beyond
We couldn't go beyond what the text.
whatever this text amendment is proposing unless that applicant then requested a text amendment as well.
And is there any, we are home rule, is there any risk of people asking for extensions beyond what the state grants? Is that something that we think people would ever ask us for?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And there's no obligation for the two existing, dispensary licenses to extend their hours. That was something they'd have to come back to us for, so.
Correct.
If they're happy with their hours,
And I have not spoken to either of them about it. I'm not sure if either of them would want to return or not.
So why is staff even suggesting this?
It was an aldermanic referral,
By
Councilmember Reed.
surprise?
I'm trying to understand this a little bit. In the last sentence of the first paragraph, it says, the reason for this is so that Evanston cannabis dispensary businesses are not unduly restricted in comparison to other types of businesses. Does that mean other similar types of businesses outside of Evanston?
Yes and no. I guess a good example would be the dispensary approved at 100 Chicago Avenue. It also has a bakery. They are two independent businesses, but one is not willing to operate on hours when the other one is not open. So there's a bakery that is not willing to be open early in the morning right now.
Not allowed to be open?
Well, not allowed based on the special use, and if the dispensary can also not be open, then the bakery doesn't want to be open, is my understanding.
And it's a cannabis bakery?
No.
Oh, no.
The bakery is essentially the waiting room before you enter the dispensary.
But it lists them as having 7 a.m. as their opening time that they're permitted.
Correct. So they don't want to be open before the dispensary.
So they aren't open yet, I don't believe.
No.
but the dispensary is going to be open from 10 to 8 p.m.
Right, so the bakery would not open till 10 p.m.
No,
or 10 a.m.
well, it
is what you're
says
what you're-
7 a.m.
Well, that's
because
what they're
they wanted-
allowed.
But they wanted
to.
to sell coffee and donuts to the folks going to the L, I think, because I
Right,
recall
but what
from the
I'm hearing
discussion.
from staff is that the desire of the bakery is not to be open while the dispensary is not open. So although we've given them 7 a.m. as an opening time, they are not going to open until 10 a.m.
That is my
Unless the
understanding.
dispensary can open earlier. And I don't have a problem with dispensaries opening earlier. My problem is with them staying open later, too late. I mean, I think that in terms of making Evanston compatible and competitive with neighboring areas, it appears 9 p.m. is kind of the max.
Yeah, would you want to, I agree. I think the neighborhoods around us, it's important to consider what they are, but are you suggesting earlier than 9 a.m.?
I have no problem with earlier than 9 a.m. because I think that becomes an issue there are people who work evenings who get off work at 7 a.m. and they go home and they can't stop at the dispensary on their way home. They have to go home, nap, do whatever, and then come back to the dispensary as opposed to picking it up on the way. So I don't have a problem with us having a dispensary that opens at 7 a.m. I don't think you're going to get a bunch of people who are going to be doing that, but this is the issue that we've had with some of the liquor sales in town. I know the gas station on Oakton I think, was granted earlier hours because of the fact that people, the landscape people who would come and fill up their trucks would grab beer and for the afternoon. But I don't have a problem with it opening earlier. I just don't like them staying open a lot later.
But if we're, these are kind of the maximum range, we still have the ability to condition an application to make the hours.
Right, but I think we have to be somewhat realistic
Right.
so when people come and we say, oh, well, it can be between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., oh, but we're only going to let you do it from 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. I mean, it's like, it's kind of a bait and switch on people. So I would like us to get as close as possible to those hours that we feel would be acceptable when special uses come in. And again, taking into account if it's closer to residences, if it's in an area that tends to be quieter at certain hours, things like that, that
Yeah.
would be something we could consider then.
Yeah, 6 a.m. seems a little early.
I don't know that we need to go 6 a.m., but I would be happy with 7 a.m.
I don't know, it seems to me 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. is a lot of time, it's 12 hours, that anybody that's working at shift work could accommodate that time, either in the beginning or at the end. I just think 12 hours is a big time, and it's what the other communities around us are doing. So,
We're already allowing 10 hours a day, and I mean, I hear the lack of compatibility argument with other businesses, but I'm not really I'm so far not convinced that there's like a harm that's happening.
I don't think there's a harm that's happening, but I think there is a thing where this is something that's become very, very interesting, is to watch how dispensaries have become much more competitive in marketing themselves and things like this. They're all in competition with each other. And I think that if neighboring municipalities are granting longer times, that is potentially tax dollars that the city of Evanston is leaving on the table. Because if I need to get something at 9 a.m., I can't get it in Evanston at 9 a.m.
and that's why I think it's important that we be consistent with our surrounding neighbors.
Any other thoughts? Commissioner Rinchev, anything? Well, let's go through the standards for the text amendment, and then we can work out the fine details of it. There are 4 standards that we must find are met, some of which are a little weird for something like this, but we'll go through them. The first one is whether the proposed amendment is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Comprehensive General Plan as adopted and amended from time to time by the City Council. I'll just say that, I think part of this is that we want our businesses to thrive. We want our businesses to be competitive with neighboring municipalities. Part of it also is generating tax revenue for the city so that we can do the many other things that we want to do. So I think in looking at expanding hours, it does meet with those things, and it is compatible. Second one is whether the proposed amendment is compatible with the overall character of existing development in the immediate vicinity of the subject property. Presently, we are talking about two dispensaries in town, both of which have already been approved for operation. So obviously, having a dispensary in these neighborhoods and in these areas has not presented a particular challenge to them being out of character with the immediate vicinity. By maintaining this as a special use, obviously anything that is being proposed would have to come to this commission for a recommendation to City Council for a special use. And therefore, if there ever were a situation in which we felt and City Council felt that the institution of a dispensary with certain hours would be incompatible, it could be addressed at that time. The third one, whether the proposed amendment will have an adverse effect on the value of adjacent properties. Again, I think this one can be addressed during the special use process. We are setting kind of the outlying maximum range of hours, but we also can restrict that based on if we feel that it will have an effect on a particular area by having increased traffic, things like that, that would have been normally looked through as a special use. And the fourth one is the adequacy of public facilities and services. Obviously, that's something that, again, would be reviewed during the special use, but the extension of hours doesn't necessarily impact facilities and services on the area. So I believe that the standards are all met for this. Is everyone in agreement with my finding on standards? And if so, I guess now we just have to ask for the specific hours that we want to recommend to City Council as kind of the maximum range of hours, whether that be a 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Or beginning a little earlier. And I'm not going to die on the hill of making it an earlier
May I
start.
just clarify with staff, the request to extend hours does not necessarily come from the existing dispensaries we have in Evanston at this time, correct?
Correct.
So there's no outcry that they're losing business or,
Not that I am aware of.
okay, all right, thank you.
Well, I'll throw out, what about 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.? I agree that 10 p.m. seems a little bit late. Or,
I don't, I'm not hearing that there's a
real
huge need.
Yeah.
But I can see going from 9 to 9 simply because it does bring us in line with other communities, and it makes sure that Evanston maintains its, its attraction.
yeah, we have an 8 a.m. in Northbrook. I'm just thinking of the bakery. I mean, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m.?
Let's do one thing at a time, maybe the morning time and talk about the morning time and then discuss the evening time separately. It seems like based on the comparisons, the overwhelming start time is 9.
I mean, like I said, I don't really, I think it would be beneficial to start a little earlier, just because of the people who are working evening shifts. But I'm also not going to die on that hill. I'm not going to hold us up if everyone else is pretty much in
I'm
agreement
just
to 9 to
thinking
9.
of, we do have our, the dispensary at 100 Chicago Avenue that does have that bakery where you want them to succeed
Well,
with the
and
bakery
if-
too. So I
if-
mean, that's
if-
the only,
But they are already allowed to open at 7 a.m., correct?
but only.
The
for
bakery is. The bakery is, though.
But not the dispensary.
And again, just because we say these are the maximum hours doesn't mean we have to grant those hours. I can see a condition being, well, they have a bakery attached to it that another business, which is their waiting room, basically opens at 7 a.m. Starting them a little earlier may make sense. Like I said, my biggest concern is with going late in the evening.
I'd be comfortable going even as early as 7, but holding firm on 8 p.m. in the evening.
8 p.m.? I don't have a problem with 9 p.m.
I just think that we should be consistent with most of the surrounding neighborhood. And to me, 12 hours of opening is plenty of time for anybody that works different shifts to go there. That just seems.
I would tend to agree.
All right, then does someone want to make a motion? Again, we're only recommending on this, so city council can kind of do their own thing with this, that we've kind of voiced our opinions and everything that they will hear.
And let me say one thing, and I don't know how council's going to look at this, but if the state, it's kind of a compromise between where we were and where the state is, it seems to me. And that's one reason, and then also to be consistent with the most of the surrounding neighbors.
All right. Is there a motion then to make a recommendation for approval with the hours of 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.?
Sure. With respects to cannabis dispensary hours, text amendment 23 PLND-0071, I move that the Land Use Commission recommends change in the hours so that cannabis dispensaries shall only be permitted to operate between the hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. unless further regulated as a condition of special use approval, 7 days out of the week.
It has been moved by Commissioner Lindwall. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Halleck. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Halleck?
Yes.
Commissioner Linwall?
Yes.
Commissioner Mudinchev?
Yes.
Commissioner Foxtel?
Yes.
Commissioner Westerberg?
Yes.
Chair Rogers?
Yes, so with 6 votes in favor and none opposed, the motion carries, and we will be sending forward a positive recommendation to City Council to change the hours from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
It's from 10 a.m.
Yeah, so that the hours would change
Yeah,
to 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. All right. The next item on our agenda is the adoption of our meeting calendar. We had tabled this, to try to get more people here. Well, more people are missing. It's just a different round of people here. But let's go ahead and move forward with this. I was speaking with Ms. Jones just before the start of the meeting. There's a couple things that I wanted to kind of run through. Our April meeting's having a meeting on April 10th and April 24th. April 10th is Eid, which is the end of Ramadan. I don't think it should impact anybody, but it is a religious holiday, and we typically try to avoid those if we can because applicants may observe them. And the 24th is actually, the Passover begins on the 22nd. So typically the evening of the 22nd and 23rd, there are activities, but there are also people who also do nothing during the week of Passover. So I would like to recommend amending our meetings so that we would have one on the 17th and just have one meeting for the month of April. And I don't know if that conflicts with, I'm going to look to a parent here. Is that conflicting with any school?
Sorry, which date?
If we were to move to April 17th.
No, spring break is before that.
Okay. So that would be a recommendation for a change. And then for November and December, because we'll be heading into, hopefully, our strategic plan information, I would like to put meetings on the calendar, and if we don't need them, then we can remove them, but at least we all can sort of plan that we may have to be available on November 20th, which is actually a week before Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving falls late this year. Typically that Wednesday is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, but in this case it's the week before. And then a meeting on December 18th. Again, this would be a one that we could cancel, but we would also just have it on the calendar in case we need it for strategic plan type things. Is that okay with everybody here?
Yeah, I just question, like, how are you predicting that that's going to be when we review the strategic plan?
I've just been told by staff that we should be moving into an area where we might be having to have meetings at that time.
Oh, okay.
And if you recall, the previous iteration did have some dates.
It did, okay.
Proposed.
I just wondered
Yeah.
how our chair knew something that the rest of us didn't.
I literally just spoke with her moments before the meeting started about this. And I would rather have the dates on the calendar and cancel them as opposed to us trying to say, hey, everybody, can we get together for this? So those would be my proposed changes to the calendar. And if everyone is fine with that, I'll ask if there's a motion to approve our calendar.
I move we approve the calendar
It's been moved by
for
Commissioner Lindwall.
2024.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Westerberg. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any. The motion carries, and that will be our published calendar for the year. Again, realizing that we may have to have a special meeting at some point, or we can cancel meetings when there's nothing available.
When you publish it, you might want to change the date to 2024. January 10th.
I just looked at the January 10th part and didn't look at the year.
We can plan January 10th, 2023 for the following year. That's no problem.
All right, communication. Any communication from staff? We do have a section for public comment. I will note for the record there is no public to comment. Therefore, I will ask if there is a motion to adjourn until our meeting on January 24th.
Motion to adjourn until January 24th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We do stand adjourned until the 24th. Thank you.